2-to-1 ratio of peat to perlite. And you can see Leslie is really getting in there with her hands, kind of mushing like little balls of stuck together peat apart so that it becomes more sandy looking.
And it doesn't feel that wet. It feels damp, but if you squeeze it, you get the water coming out. This is just about right. That's a good mix.
Yeah, so when you first put water into the peat, what you're going to notice is it kind of doesn't really like to soak in, because what I understand is peat is hydrophobic first before you get it to kind of soak in. It will kind of avoid getting soaked in, and then after a little while, what would you say it took us about? It didn't take that long, for it to start soaking in, but it doesn't seem to want to do that until you massage it a little bit, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but this size, on and off for 10 minutes, just breaking down the dry clumps of peat and mixing it together with the water, sort of like making a cake where you're folding the batter, folding in the egg whites very carefully.
I typically wear gloves. You are brave enough to stick your hands in it because you're a microbiologist of worms.
Not a microbiologist.
I'm not a microbiologist, marine biologist of worms.
I'm just used to getting in the mud.
You're used to getting into the mud.
Yeah. Okay, so this is good.
Okay. So we're going to use this white pot. I chose this pot because it's lightweight. It's tall, so it's going to give me some. I would normally use a shorter pot that's a little wider so that rhizomes have like room to grow outwards. Is that what you do, Leslie? What kind of pot do you like?
Boy.
is that a hard question?
Most of my pots are just things that I'm reusing from other purchases, so it's whatever fits the best. But I especially like these because, one, they're light. The white reflects heat off it, so the soil won't get as hot as if it were a black pot or a green pot. And it's black on the inside, which means that light isn't penetrating through, which could do funky things to the roots. To the roots.
Yeah. That's why I chose the white and black. But if I weren't moving, I probably wouldn't use these dimensions. I'd probably use a wider pot, just because it seems
for room to grow.
For the rhizome to be able to go outwards. But since I'm moving, I can't have all that horizontal space taken up.
And another thing too is how often you plan to repot. If you want to have one and just leave it there for several years,
you don't have very much horizontal room,
then you want lots of room for it. But if you repot every year, as some people do, then this is enough.
Yeah, so these are half-gallon pots, everybody. Found them on Amazon. They're really, really price is right. They compress, so they're not tough walled. They kind of you're gonna put.
Well, no, I just wanted to show two ways of potting.
Oh, I see. Okay. So what are you doing right now?
Well, what a lot of people like to do is to put the soil mix in first. This helps compact it. And then they look at the plant and say, okay, the root mass is that big, and then they make a hole that big. I don't like to do that because I think what happens is that you get the roots all squished together, and there's going to be air pockets in there, which may or may not be good for the plant. So I don't like to do it that way. What I like to do is start off with some soil in the bottom.
What'd you say, like 1/3 of the way up?
Or what I do? Well, I'm taking a look at this. And
so you're gonna kind of put it in to get like a sizing reference, right?
Yeah. So, and I want it to be up here. So, how much am I going to need? But more to the point, I'm going to make a cone.
Yeah, a cone. So the center is more raised.
No,
not
so the center is raised, but so I can spread the roots out over the cone.
Yeah.
So they're spread out.
That's what I mean, like a place for it to sit and the roots go down on the sides of the cone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
you're trying to help the roots kind of spread out and not get all mashed and into a ball already.
Yeah. And to keep it up, I'm going to need more. Make that cone higher. But you can see that
there's space all around.
Yeah. So the plant's going to sit up here. And that'll get it high, and again, it will get the roots separated and give it more room to grow. Also, I'm not worried now about there being air pockets in the roots, or the roots being all tangled up. So here's our growing point. Beautiful, beautiful growing point.
I love that growing point. It's so great.
And here's where we broke off the rhizome. And since I want the growing point up on the top, what I usually do is slant it so that the end with the rhizome dips down, and that pushes the growing point upwards.
I had not been doing that, but to point it up.
Well, it's just that I noticed that when I was repotting the first ones and I did it level, the growing points were often covered by dirt. And if the growing points do better in the spring when they get more sunlight on them, then we want them up. The growing points are up. I'm going to put a little extra soil to cover the roots that are showing there.
And how much of your rhizome do you like on top of the soil? You know, like if it's too high, it's really unstable. If it's too low, it doesn't get enough sun.
If it's got good roots, then you can put it right on top, and the roots will hold it steady. Especially if you do the cone in the center and spread the roots out.
Then it becomes more stable because it's got an anchor now.
Yeah, so it's got an anchor. But
look at that growth point. Dang.
I know, it's beautiful.
So awesome.
This is a great one, Maggie.
Okay, so I see you kind of do what I do. I leave a little bit of space just so that water's, if I were to top water, there's a little area for the water to kind of pool and not rush out the edge. But I still like it kind of high because I don't like the rhizome to be blocked by the edge of the pot and and not get the full amount of sunlight available. All right, that looks really good. So how heavy is it now? This is a half-gallon pot. How heavy does it feel? Oh, look at that. Easy. It's going to go to Texas easy.